This is M5 to Washington Heights George Washington Bridge. Next stop, 6th Avenue and West 31st Street. This stop is 6th Avenue and West 31st Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 34th Street. Transfers available to the B, D, F, M, N, Q, R and W trains, path, M7, M55, M34 SBS and M34A SBS. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 34th Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 38th Street. Transfers available to QM15, QM16, QM17 and QM18. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 38th Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 40th Street. Transfers available to the 7 and F trains, GS, QM1, QM5 and QM6. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 40th Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 42nd Street. Transfer available to the D train, GS, M42 and QM20. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 42nd Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 45th Street. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 45th Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 47th Street. Transfers available to the D and M trains, QM2, QM3 and QM4. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 47th Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 50th Street. Transfers available to the F train and M50. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 50th Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 51st Street. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 51st Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 54th Street. Transfer available to the E train. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 54th Street. Next stop, Avenue of the Americas and West 57th Street. Transfers available to the F train, M31, M57, SIM3C and SIM10. This stop is Avenue of the Americas and West 57th Street. Next stop, Central Park South and 6th Avenue. Transfers available to SIM1, SIM3 and SIM3C. This stop is Central Park South and 6th Avenue. Next stop, Central Park South and 7th Avenue. Transfers available to M20 and M104. This stop is Central Park South and 7th Avenue. Next stop, Central Park South and Columbus Circle. Transfers available to the 1, 2, A, B, C and D trains, M10, M12, M20, M5 Limited and M7. This stop is Central Park South and Columbus Circle. Next stop, Broadway and West 61st Street. Transfers available to M5 Limited and M7. This stop is Broadway and West 61st Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 63rd Street. Transfer available to M11. This stop is Broadway and West 63rd Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 66th Street. Transfers available to the 1 train and M66. This stop is Broadway and West 66th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 69th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 69th Street. Next stop, West 72nd Street and Broadway. Transfers available to M57 and M72. This stop is West 72nd Street and Broadway. Next stop, West 72nd Street and West End Avenue. This stop is West 72nd Street and West End Avenue. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 74th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 74th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 77th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 77th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 79th Street. Transfer available to M79 SBS. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 79th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 82nd Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 82nd Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 85th Street. Transfer available to M86 SBS. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 85th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 87th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 87th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 89th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 89th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 91st Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 91st Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 94th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 94th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 97th Street. Transfers available to M96 and M106. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 97th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 100th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 100th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 103rd Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 103rd Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 106th Street. Transfer available to M60 SBS. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 106th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 108th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 108th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 112th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 112th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 114th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 114th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 116th Street. Transfers available to M4 and M60 SBS. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 116th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 119th Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 119th Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and West 122nd Street. This stop is Riverside Drive and West 122nd Street. Next stop, Riverside Drive and Tiemann Place. This stop is Riverside Drive and Tiemann Place. Next stop, West 135th Street and Riverside Drive. Transfer available to M11. This stop is West 135th Street and Riverside Drive. Next stop, Broadway and West 135th Street. Transfer available to the 1 train. This stop is Broadway and West 135th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 139th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 139th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 141st Street. This stop is Broadway and West 141st Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 143rd Street. This stop is Broadway and West 143rd Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 145th Street. Transfer available to BX19. This stop is Broadway and West 145th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 147th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 147th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 149th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 149th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 151st Street. This stop is Broadway and West 151st Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 153rd Street. This stop is Broadway and West 153rd Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 155th Street. Transfers available to M3, M101 Limited and BX6 SBS. This stop is Broadway and West 155th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 157th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 157th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 159th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 159th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 161st Street. This stop is Broadway and West 161st Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 163rd Street. This stop is Broadway and West 163rd Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 165th Street. Transfer available to M2 Limited. This stop is Broadway and West 165th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 168th Street. Transfers available to the 1 and 8 trains, M2, M3, M100, M2 Limited and BX7. This stop is Broadway and West 168th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 171st Street. This stop is Broadway and West 171st Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 173rd Street. This stop is Broadway and West 173rd Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 175th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 175th Street. Next stop, West 178th Street and Broadway. Transfers available to BX3, BX13, BX35, BX36, BX36 Limited, BX11 and M98 Limited. This stop is West 178th Street and Broadway. This is M5 to Washington Heights George Washington Bridge. Please exit through the rear door.